Test, 1, 2, test.
Okay, let's I hereby call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Brown is here. Mrs. Galbraith.
Here.
Dr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. Sawallish.
Here.
Mrs. Walters. Vice President Root.
Here.
President Albert.
Here. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the boards, before I get to public comment, just one housekeeping item. Scratch item number 12 on the agenda. It just says action. That was a placeholder to vote on the superintendent's contract, but I didn't get back to Cheryl on Thursday with a descriptive, so we can vote on that in July. So, okay. So first up, public comment. Oh, mission. I'm sorry, Cheryl. Would you please recite the mission statement?
Our mission is to empower each student to positively impact the world for a bright new future.
Thank you. Apologies for my. I've been good lately. I haven't forgotten in a while. So. Okay, public comment. We have one in person, and that is Star Lawson. And the topic is metal detectors, cons and pros. So, Star, would you come up to the podium, please?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for allowing me to comment on this topic that I've been hearing about. And I must admit that I am for safety, and I want all of our schools to be safe. However, I'm also concerned about the impact that it would have on students as well. Installing metal detectors in our buildings. I would agree to have one in each building, to have all non-students enter them. Parents, adults, vendors, and other visitors who are more apt to become an active shooter. And with or without any legislation on metal detectors, physical security is a growing concern for schools all around the nation with everything that is going on, all the shootings. Currently in South Carolina, for example, House Bill 3218 proposes that beginning with the 2021 school year, walk-through metal detectors must be installed and operated at all public entrances of each public elementary school. So we know what's going on all around the nation. Most likely, soon all public schools may be required to have metal detectors. But I just wanted to share with you so that you could include in your thought process as you're making a decision about this, some of the pros and cons of metal detectors in schools. Placing metal detectors in schools has been a controversial discussion, and there are a lot of things to think about before making that decision to purchase them. And so here we have the pros, weapon confiscation. The first benefit is probably the most obvious one, the ability to detect and confiscate weapons from anyone entering the building. Then the deterrence. Confiscation isn't the only major benefit of metal detectors. According to experts, just the presence of machines alone is often enough to prevent someone from entering or even thinking of entering the building with a weapon. And this is especially true for students and staff who walk through the machines on a regular basis. But there are some cons, and you must give credence to the cons in this situation and not just decide that you're going to have metal detectors, whether whoever want them or don't. The large expense. Now, that's to the taxpayers. Probably the biggest con in the eyes of many is that the addition of metal detectors to every school will have a huge fiscal impact. So this is something that we need to be thinking about for metal detectors. And then the implementation. At the end of the day, metal detectors are only effective if properly implemented and monitored. And that's a great concern of mine, because even the most well-run metal detector system isn't 100% foolproof. So basically, they're only as good as the person running them. And here experts argue that schools are very unlikely to be able to operate a 24/7 metal detector program. And as mentioned above, it would require an enormous amount of money and manpower to continually and properly implement the use of metal detectors in schools. And if these metal detectors can't be monitored all the time by trained professionals, they will be rendered useless, and the initial expense to taxpayers will have a huge waste. This is a discussion that we will have on Community Zoom for those of you who are familiar with the taxpayers coming together to discuss issues. This will be our topic of discussion on tomorrow on Community Zoom. So it's likely that you'll see more people come to address this issue. Thank you for this time.
Thank you. The next public comment came in electronically. It's from James Young, and the topic is school safety. Hello, President Albrecht, school board members, and Superintendent Coglanese. I'm writing relative to an agenda item for tonight's school board meeting, or tonight's board meeting, regarding approving the purchase and installation of 18 metal detectors for Crete Monee High School and Crete Monee Middle School in the amount of $82,797.75. I find it appalling our school board members are at a point in time seriously considering destroying our educational atmosphere and creating an environment of apprehension, fear, and anxiety. Metal detectors will not stop horrible and violent situations from occurring inside our schools. It will only assist in preventing weapons from entering our educational building after they are detected. If someone wanted to get a weapon into a school, the metal detector would not be the point of entry. I recognize the need to improve school safety. However, the installation of metal detectors will represent a daily visual sign of misery. It is an outlandish effort to distract our students and teachers from true education. I urge every school board member to vote no on the installation of metal detectors in our high school and middle school. As an alternative, I suggest the available $82,797.75 be utilized towards the following ideas to improve school safety. 1, employment of school resource officers in every district school who are student/staff focused. These personnel should not be local police department personnel. 2, promote frequent daily walkthrough within every school building by the local police department uniformed patrol officers. 3, continual identification, monitoring, and immediate eradication of bully behaviors seen, known, and existing among all warrior personnel. 4, continual community engagement. 5, continual training on school safety issues for all school personnel regarding lessons learned from other horrible events. I believe the above information will be a better approach than the installation of metal detectors in our schools. I encourage every school board member to vote no. Respectfully submitted, James W. Young, certified and former middle grade teacher. Okay, so that's all we have for public comment tonight. Are there any board updates?
I have something, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think that it's an update, but we received a lot of information late in the day today that pertained to this evening's meeting, and I think that we were unable, many of us, to get to all of that information. So I'm asking, we've had this discussion before also with other superintendents. When you're getting emails at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and 5 of the 7 are full-time employees at companies, how are they supposed to read that and digest it and look into the information you've given? So I'm just asking that we be a little more careful on our timeline. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it happens, these are all critical issues we're going through right now tonight. And I just feel badly that I wasn't able to get to the last one, and I'm not fully employed. So I don't feel like I'm well informed on the subject that it was sent to now because I wasn't able to read that email. And I know that other board members weren't able to get to the emails that they received this afternoon. I think they started about 1:30 and that went at 1:30, 2:30, 4 o'clock. I understand things come up late, but these were things that were on the agenda that were going to be discussed, and they were additional information that could help us make a decision or bring questions to the forefront so we understand what's going on. So I just wanted to bring that up, that I think that there might be a little concern about that.
Was that for the PowerPoint presentation that we were sharing this evening?
There were 3 different emails today. One was more information on metal detectors.
That was from Mr. Brown. That was
No,
not from
no,
me.
I'm not going
was
on
not
my
from
phone,
me.
I don't have it. But, no, Mr. Brown's, I had when I woke up this morning, it came last night. But there was 3 emails that came this afternoon, and the latest one came at 4. So, I mean, that's not very much
There were
time.
notifications that the board book had been updated.
Okay, it was just with the PowerPoint presentation for this.
Right, but I mean, if we can't get to that, then that's information we don't have to make a decision, is what
Will
I'm
the
trying to say.
PowerPoint be presented tonight?
Yes.
So, contracts and things like that. I mean, they were important subjects. So I just want to, and they were things that we knew we were coming here for today, so I'm not quite sure why we got them so late in the day today. That's all.
We'll be mindful, thank you.
Thank you.
In the safety plan update, and your updates, are we going to talk about the metal detectors? Is that
Pardon-
part, are
pardon
the
me?
metal detectors part of that?
That is basically most of the
Okay.
presentation. Yeah. And that was just, we were following up on the things that you requested of us from our last meeting.
Any other board updates? Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Coglanese, the safety plan update, administrative updates.
All right. This was more or less a part 2 from our discussion last week as we were bringing up some of our overall plans for the safety, not just with the metal detectors, but our overall safety plan. And I know that the board, spent quite a bit of time asking for, looking at this discussion item. One of the things that was asked of us was, I think it was one of our board members asked for some additional research that was out there, that I did go ahead and send that, some reading materials. I've included just an update for the public as well today, just a summary of some of the 4 articles that were there. And then I've asked Mr. Hollyfield, Ms. Chrysos, Mr. Johnson will be filling in for Ken, and Mr. Simpson will also be here, just to address some of the other things that we have kind of fine-tuned in looking at how many that we would be looking at, costs of backpacks. So those are really where the conversations, I think, ended up last time. And then, we can, continue with that discussion as need be. So for tonight, I'm just going to ask, I'm going to sit here, I think, so I can read the screen. I could not read it from for the school safety part. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about, there were several articles. One of them was one from the Journal. Several were for some websites, and one was from, that I think Mr. Brown sent all of you from Mr. Trump. And so I'm just going to give you a high-level overview of this. This was from the Journal of School Health, so this is more of a peer-reviewed journal. This was based on 15 years of research, and this was pretty much the overview. It says there is insufficient data in the literature to determine whether the presence of metal detectors in schools reduce the risks of violent behaviors among students. And some research suggests that the presence of metal detectors may detrimentally impact students' perception of safety. And again, I think this has been brought up before. Metal detectors are a tool, and I think one of our public comments today was, it's only as good as the people that are implementing it with the training. And I think that was mentioned there as well. The other article was, are metal detectors effective at making schools safer? And this was from the Journal of Prevention from the Research Center. And basically it said, there is little evidence to support their effectiveness at preventing school shootings or successfully detecting weapons at school. Schools considering using metal detectors should also consider other prevention efforts, such as increased access to mental health services. And again, I think that also reflects what we've kind of discussed as a group for those pieces. The other 2 articles, the other one was metal detectors in schools, what you should know, and this was from metaldetector.com. And it was more of a Q&A, things to consider about the implementation, the costs, the training, and so forth. So it provided a Q&A on some of the overall detectors, and things to think about. The article did cite that the New York public schools use metal detectors and showed a reduced number of students carrying weapons, and their data was a 78% to 14%. So that was the one data piece that was available in this particular article. And then the last one was Ken Trump, and again, just to reference him, he's one of our national speakers out there on public safety. He has a website and a blog, and he had an extensive article, and again, as you recall. And again, he agrees there are no credible statistics out there on the exact number of schools using metal detectors on a daily basis. They are typically limited to larger urban school districts with chronic histories of weapons-related offenses. And then he said, you know, there's no 100% guarantee that metal detectors will eliminate incidences, and again, because of human error in many of the cases. Trump cautioned school officials to use caution to avoid overreaction to throw up security after high-profile incidences, and that was just a direct quote from him. And then again, considerations on implementation, training, and upkeep should be considered. And so, as you recall from the article, he listed a whole list of things that need to be considered. So again, kind of, you know, taking a look at all of these articles, it's a tool. There's not a lot of research that actually points that it reduces that necessarily, but again, it's how well it's used as a tool. Certainly there's some things to consider, you know, such as training, staffing, that, you know, we additionally have looked at in putting something like this together, and we'll be sharing a little bit of our thoughts on that as well. So I'm going to turn this over to the high school and middle school. This was a sampling of some of the things that we found. They went back to their buildings and looked at their entry points to determine how many. Dr. Hall, did you have a question?
Yeah, no, it's not a question. It's
Oh.
just, and I get it that it's not enough research out there, and you're just trying to find stuff.
Yeah.
And what I say may sound contradictory, but it's just funny how in New York they say 78% to 14%. Does that mean 78% of the students carry weapons and now only 14% carry weapons? And then the other thing is, how could you say that it possibly does not deter? Because if students don't bring up, did it do its job? So it's contradictory in itself what I say, but
Absolutely.
the research is contradictory as well. I mean, even, which is probably why there's little, because you don't have any weapons. Well, maybe you weren't finding them before. You don't have any weapons. Well, maybe the metal detectors did prevent them from coming in. So I don't know. It's just
Exactly, and I think that's where we were coming at. It's a tool if we
and
choose
that's
to
the
use
point,
that.
yes. It's definitely a tool that you use, and everybody has how they feel about it. So
And it is just kind of, you know, what do we think is best, I think, at the end of the day.
yes.
Okay, I'm going to turn this over to the high school, or actually, do we want to talk, maybe Brian, just talk a little bit about, these are the ones that we had been looking at. You're going to see that as an action item. These would be the ones we would be looking at.
So we do have two purchase orders up tonight on the agenda. 9 metal detectors each for the middle school and the high school for a total of just under $82,798, which comes out to about $4,600 for each metal detector. This includes shipping, installation, orientation, the wands, the mats, the buckets to put your personal items in while going through security. A 3-year warranty. There's batteries which are used for backup if there's power loss, or they're also movable. So if we're going to do things wirelessly, they're also weather deterrent, so we can move them outside, which when the batteries would come into place. They come with signage, environmentally safe covers, and weatherproofing against water and dust. So that's the breakdown of what we get. And there are technicians as well with that 3-year warranty. I believe I said they would also provide an orientation. So that's the breakdown of what we would be getting. Is there any questions on the specs of that?
I'm going to wait till I think everybody's done to start addressing questions.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Okay, once again, we're going to talk about the communication. We agree that we would need to update the parents and staff on the backpacks and the decision about the metal detectors via our school welcome back letter, and we're in agreement also that we have to update the community via district newsletter and social media. So the recommendations that we have, and I have it on my phone because it's testing my vision right now. So we're recommending that we purchase 18 metal detectors, 9 for each location, the high school and the middle school. But we're thinking that the high school should be the trial location prior to launching any widespread effort. As you can see, as we look at the research, there's holes in the research, and by experimenting with the use of the metal detectors in our own environment, we could get a better picture for what it would look like prior to disseminating this throughout the entire district. The second bullet, and I want you to pay attention to it, at our last meeting, there were over 4,000 book bags available, but other school districts have caught on to this as well. And when we checked back with the vendor, right now there's only 1,100 medium clear backpacks and 1,400 large backpacks. Ken and we will be working with the current vendor to secure more backpacks. Otherwise, we will be looking elsewhere to get additional backpacks. So there are schools right within our area that are securing these backpacks. So if we're going to move on it and issue them to the students, we have to get a decision very quickly.
And let me just reference it. In your board packet under action items, just pay attention. We made an adjustment. It'll be reflective in the motion up to. So just want to make note of that.
The third bullet, we would recommend hiring 8 additional security guards to cover the metal detectors. As we have been communicating, these are only tools. Tools do not monitor themselves, which we're well aware of that. So we would need the manpower there to ensure that these metal detectors are monitored. The fourth bullet addresses the fact that we would come up with procedures and protocols for the use of the metal detectors. And last but not least, we would have to train all of the staff who would be using these metal detectors on the procedures and the protocols. So we're full aware of that, and these are the recommendations that we're bringing to the board tonight.
Okay, is it question time now? Or is there more to go? Okay.
I could speak on training and policies issues if you like, real quick.
Sure.
Training issues. I've identified a local trainer, master trainer. He is in charge of security for White Sox, Guaranteed Field, and United Center. So he is in charge of 25,000 people daily entering that facility with metal detectors. He's policies, procedures, everything. I believe that's an important person that we might want to consider utilizing for our training, because the people that are running the metal detectors do not have any law enforcement authority. They're not law enforcement, off-duty, anything like that. And I think that's a very, very important piece, because that's who we'd be using. Additionally, they are worried about active, effective screening of personnel, but also quickly, which I think is another aspect that kind of parallels and align what we're trying to do. Policies and procedures, I've been researching and trying to find some things that align with us. There's some industry standards on a couple things. There's also some school policies I haven't found too much. I've sent a few things to Dr. Kara, so we're still trying to craft that up and see where this falls and how it definitely aligns with CM201U.
You said the White Sox?
Sox and United Center.
That should be good because the Sox average about 1,500 fans a game, right?
Yeah. Is it that many? Is it that many? Patrick, don't leave. So we might as well start with you, with seeing as you're the last man up, you can be the first man for a question.
Go ahead.
That trainer, what are
Yes.
you talking about dollar-wise? And how much time is he giving us?
Well,
What's
he's
the
local.
plan?
He's local,
Yeah.
and he's probably, if I had to guess, I actually invited him here for the Ken Trump thing, so he heard everything Ken Trump said. What's nice about him is he is local, so he can, if we had to do a 4-hour block, come and go. I haven't got prices yet because he was I was trying, somebody scanning somebody at the airport, I think is very different than what we're looking at here.
I don't think he's going to come cheap. That's why I'm asking.
Well, I think it's going to be far cheaper than you think, especially if we're able to break that up into a couple sessions. Yeah. Yes.
Well, I'm concerned about the cost with that. I like the background on the person, but everything we mention, the cost keeps going up. So, when we put out to the public $82,000
Right.
for the metal detectors, there's all these other things like, I'm going to be honest, you're having trouble hiring people for our schools. Where are we going to get 8 more security officers?
Well, that is out of the biggest concern here for me personally is that, only because the cost of that training, that gentleman does so much training for free, and he's just, he's very interested in safety, security, and law enforcement. That's going to be far cheaper than you would think. That, I believe, the generous salary increase that security officers received, I think that's definitely going to help me solicit, recruit, and retain some employees. So only time will tell on that, though.
Right, and we don't know salaries yet on that either. I mean, I think we need some dollar figures here on some of these things. Again.
If the board moves forward on these, I can have those in the next day or two. That's not a problem.
Okay, but I'm not moving forward on something I don't know what's going to cost.
I understand.
I'm point blank going to tell you that.
Right.
We were supposed to be prepared tonight. I get it that we're getting things late, but this is part of the problem. We started out with this base figure last week of the 8, and now we're up to 18, and we're up to 8 employees in this. I mean, we knew this was all coming, but again, I'm not prepared to vote on something when I don't have all the information. And right now, I don't have all the information.
Can I jump on that for a second?
Understood.
So that's part of the reason. So last week, it was, we're going to do the high school, and we're going to go with that. And I brought up the middle school because we've had incidents there, and Principal Christos is concerned of getting 1,100 students in and out of her building. And then today, we're going to approve 18 of them. And we don't even have the information to move forward, in my opinion. I'm just not understanding the need for rush. And this is exactly the same situation we've been dealing with for the last 4 or 5 months. Everything we do here, it's the need to hurry up and rush and push it through. And I'm all for, number one, I want to make sure teachers, staff, and students are safe, without a doubt. And I need to make sure that everybody understands that this is not the end-all. The emails we're getting from the public thinks this is the end-all. It's not. Dr. Hall said it. Ms. Lawson said it. If someone's going to come in the building, they're going right through the metal detector. So we have to understand that it is a tool. It's a deterrent. We get it. Now flip it over to the other side. We had multiple incidences in these schools where a student brought something and either administered it or not. So that's what it's going to stop, which is keeping the safety to the students and the teachers and the staff. And I'm all for that. The problem is, what is our plan? And last week we talked, and Mr. Holyfield said, we're going to do, we're going to start with the high school. And I was adamant about the junior high because the incident happened this year. And understood Principal Christos, like, how are we going to get 1,100 people through three entry points? Now today we have 18. That's frustrating. I mean,
Bill, recall, though, that at the committee of the whole meeting, I suggested we put this item on the agenda if all our questions were answered, we could vote on it, okay? Because of the timing, just trying to, if we're going to order these for the beginning of the school year, tonight might be the night. If we don't have all the answers, we don't have to vote on this tonight.
Correct.
We-
And
so-
again, I totally understand it, but everybody has to understand, I'm
Yep.
voicing my opinion, how I feel.
No,
because this is, unfortunately, it's a great plan, it's a good idea to do, in a way, to keep teachers and students and everybody safe. But on the other side, it's the track record of what's going on, that we just throw this out there and we got to hurry up and rush it through.
And I share the same concern that Janine had, that now, this new information that we're going to have to hire 8 new security guards, what's the cost of that? Is it feasible to get them in,
Right,
So-
and last week I said that even if we don't do it right at the opening day of school, but we get a plan, Mr. Stevenson can hire the people, and hire and train, and then we get them and we put them in place, then great, start with the high school. Understood, I'm totally for all that. But not to rush through all this and hurry up and with no plan. And again, not that you don't have a plan, but
Right.
the final details. I mean, it's hard for me to vote on that at $82,000.
Yeah, understood. I think an important thing, I know Mr. Hollyfield said it, we said it before, this is about people, not products. This is a tool. I think we all know that. A large component of Mr. Hogenkamp, the trainer, he is I don't know if I would classify him as an expert. I know he went to the Force Science Institute, which is all about human behavior, human performance. I am also a graduate of that institution. And what it is it's about identification of violent behavior, predictors. He teaches many, many organizations on this. So he is not just going to, how do you walk through and when the beep goes off, do that. There's going to be a far more involved components of that. So I just wanted to add, I know that you said
And
that.
you're
but-
correct on that. That's really exactly the point, is
Yes.
that when the first student walks through the high school and it goes off, what's going to happen? And how does that stop? Here's the
Correct.
thing is, the kids that are rolling in and buses that are late, and again, buses aren't late because the service is bad, it's buses are late because of life and things that go on. And now how does Mr. Holyfield have to get all these kids without getting in trouble and then jump that over to 1,100 kids over at Principal Creaso's? How does that all work? That's, I think, is what we want to work out. Again, 100% want to be safe to the teachers, to the students and the staff, because we already know that students have brought something that administered it,
Right.
and it can't happen. So we just got to make sure.
Mr. Schwalsh, you got to remember, we were also doing bag checks, and we were getting a lot of people in, and we were doing them very quickly. We got very good at it. So I think as this unfolds, as we get our training, as we understand this, one of the things I suggested to Dr. Kara was that maybe I take my security guards down to either United Center or Sox Park and for a field trip and watch this and try to pick up and try to get more proficient so that we can make sure that we are doing this efficiently and effectively.
And I think when you go down to the guaranteed rate or wherever you're going to go, you can see whoever's standing on the other side with a wand or coming through, it doesn't matter who they are, what they are, everybody is being treated the same way. And I think Mr. Brown had, brought that up last week, that, there is
Correct.
a way of handling that, and
Yes.
we want to make sure that we train so that everybody is treated equally.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, one of the things is, because you said when it goes off, the belts make it go off. There are little things that'll make it go off. So, and I'm sure as they go through, they'll get proficient with it. I just don't want them to get lax with it. But this is the question section. I thought, maybe I missed something. Maybe I'm forgetting something because it did get late. Well, it was 40,000 last week? Well, I guess my question.
It was only 8, we more than doubled it.
Right, so my question is, in the public comment, so whoever did the public comment mentioned the $80-something thousand, and I'm trying to figure, how did they know that it was 80-something thousand?
It's in the agenda.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm like, well, and I did see that, but I forget that the agenda goes up first. Okay, thank you, that was a.
Right, and just to, I think, address some of the questions here, we were trying to be proactive because we were sensing that the board was interested in pursuing this. Again, looking for more research that we brought into looking at pricing. We went back and had the middle school figure out how many entrances they would need. That's why the number went back, because we thought you said, you know, find us how much you would need for the middle school as well. So the only reason we put it to the agenda to vote on it was to be prepared if you wanted to go in that direction. Again, we had talked about moving the high school, having it be first. The agenda could say, you know, not to exceed, you know, a certain amount if we're not ready to move forward, or you can say you're not ready to vote, period. So this was just to be prepared based on how the discussion went. So.
Yeah, and I'm for it, for being safe, but I just want to see, like, are we prepared? And is Mr. Stevenson going to be able to get the people and train them in time? I just don't want to rush through it, because then we're going to have a problem.
Well, and I'm telling you, the staffing is an issue. We all know
Yes,
that.
it is.
And that's been our biggest concern about implementation of this whole
You're going to
thing
need a
here.
specific type of person for this, so
Yeah.
you can't
So
rush.
that is, and that was brought up in all the literature as well. So it is a decision, but it's like, well, do we go and hire them first, then get the detectors? I mean, it's the chicken or the egg, I guess, on this one. So again, we were just putting together what we know the expenses are going to be and what the concerns are.
You know, I think, again, from a public perception point of view, by implementing the installation of metal detectors, that would be deemed by the public as, you know, a very good gesture on the school district, as well as it should be deemed as a very good gesture on the school district to promote safety. What I found out last week, or I did not notice at all, that, and I believe it was you, Patrick, that said that you guys really obtained very good success with the use of metal detectors on a mobile operation, right? Using a wand, that's a metal detector, right? Is that what, aren't you guys doing that now? Didn't you say you,
Speak into the mic, please.
did you say, did you not say?
No, that wasn't me, sir.
I thought you guys said you was doing sporadic?
Bag checks, bag searches,
Oh,
bag searches.
So you're not doing any type of
No.
He did
mobilizing?
mention about getting, if you had mobility, you could take them out to a football game or something like that. If you
No.
needed to move them, they moved.
Oh, I
There
thought
was-
you said you
there
was
was
doing
talking
metal,
about
you was random,
mobility.
you was random doing.
Bag searches.
This is
bag
just the
searches.
backpacks?
Correct. At the high
Physically,
school.
physically?
Yes, at the high school, correct.
Okay, not with the use of a metal
No,
detector?
sir, no, sir.
Okay, so is it fair to say we do not have any forms of metal detections here? Or
We
detectors?
do have a few that are in my office. They're the same ones that were here. I believe Dr. Clark bought those prior to my employment, but we have never deployed them, to my knowledge.
Okay. And so we're talking about 18, to install 18 metal detectors, 8 here in the high school, or 9 here in the high school and 9 at the middle school, with the addition of 8 security personnel, right? So is it fair to say, I'm just throwing a number out there, safety is paramount, our priority, the highest priority we have is the safety of our employees, students, staff, so on. You know, there's always money, the finance is always some mitigating factor to keep you from doing everything you possibly could. So you said this is a tool. I believe Ken Trump said this is just one tool. And I really want you to continue to drive that home, that it is one tool, that the public don't get into some type of paradigm, some type of pattern of complacency out there, saying, hey, we got metal detectors, and all of a sudden something happened, and hey, I thought this was the cure for all. Right. It is not.
And I think that's why education is the primary tool. Even with bringing them into the school, we would have to educate our students that we're not trying to criminalize students.
Well, that's one
And-
thing that, again, the data's not out there, but I believe it was Mr. Young that said something to that notion and on that topic that, you know, Crete, and I'm just going to be real here, Crete have had, I've been on the board for 11, 12 years, going on 12 years, and it's been the minorities that's been deemed and seen as the problem childs here within our district. behavior-wise. And that being said, with these metal detectors, I think it's a different scenario with the metal detectors here and metal detectors at Sox Park and Wrigley Field and wherever, the airport.
But to be honest, I think it's the education around the why. If we put them here and we do not take an opportunity to educate the students, this is not a statement about you.
I agree with you 100%, and that's why I know we're trying to be on a fast track with this. I know things is kind of pushing us to act. We had an issue here within our district over a couple weeks ago, the shooting in Texas, and you know, people want action, people want things resolved. But I think this is a topic that definitely need more public community input. How is it going to affect our kids? All of our kids. So I just haven't heard that. I just haven't heard that answer. And going out and getting the detectors right now and not having the staff to justly accommodate that, not really breaking down the numbers. I know I'm kind of repeating what some of my colleagues has already said, but I am not against safety.
Well, we're going to get a chance to talk about this more when we come to the action report on it. So why don't can we leave it there?
Well, I still had questions. I got stopped along the way. Can I
Go
finish
ahead.
mine?
Go ahead.
So they're quick, and I don't know who wants this one, but have we talked to any of the staff, the students, community members? Most of all, every building has a safety committee. Has anybody, other than the principals and administration, been involved in this program or ideas or what they think we need to do to implement them if we get them? Has anyone else been involved in this?
Well, I can address that. You know, when we brought this to the board, this was after June when all of our students, or excuse me, all of our teachers had gone. So this was kind of at the discussion area. If the board wishes, like I said, to look at various stakeholders or community, you know, and you want to further explore it, you know, there are other avenues. We could go and do surveys and so forth and get, you know, opinions out there.
Personally, we have these safety committees in every school. I mean, can we reach out to somebody? I mean, I think that our staff should have a little input on how they see this happening and what they think best ways, best practice. I mean, why do we have these committees if we're not using them, I guess? Because we're not using a lot of our committees. So to me, we need to do that, and we also need to educate our community about why we're doing it. I mean, we talked about educating the students that we're not doing this as a punishment or whatever, but the community is wondering also. And I don't have the answers, so I just keep telling them to watch the meetings. But we need to figure out a way to make our community understand, all four of our communities, and then some, why we're doing this and how we're doing this. We can't just throw it out there because they're not going to be happy. So I'm just stating that one. And the last but not least is the backpacks. We're going to order one per student, is that correct?
Yes.
One per student.
Okay, so what happens 3 days later when it's torn, it's lost, whatever?
Well, we have data at the high school that only one backpack out of the 3,000 that we've sold here has ever been damaged. That's the data that we have. But we are planning to secure more than enough, and backpacks would be available for a cost after the initial backpack is issued.
Okay, so my question is, we have waived all fees, is that correct? Nobody pays fees anymore?
That's correct.
So we've received a couple of different community members reaching out to us, and they are very angry. I haven't found one in support of us paying for backpacks. They think that that should be the responsibility of the family. So I'm putting that out there that I'm tending to agree with them. We've waived all other fees, and I think that we should, you know, at some point we have to decide what's most important. I know we want clear backpacks, but you haven't been enforcing it now. So we have to figure out a way with these backpacks, because I was here one day when I was standing right in the middle lobby, and the kid came and his bag was all torn apart, and a teacher went and got another one and gave it to him right in front of me. So if that's the only one out of 300, that's nothing short of a miracle that I witnessed it, is what I'm saying. I just don't believe they hold together that well. So again, my feeling on that backpacks is I'm not really in support of it right now because we are paying all the other fees. A parent has to go out and buy a backpack no matter what. So I guess what I'm saying is I think that that should be the responsibility of the parent for the child. That's my opinion. And I think that's the opinion of the emails that we're starting to get also. So.
On the backpack, we have placed it on our supply list for middle school, so it's there as a requirement. So hopefully, I mean, parents will comply with that. That's the expectation, but we know that not every child has a supportive environment at home, and so we do need to be able to support the children who might need an additional supply. And even if we sell it at a cost or we have it around, we did this year, we had some at cost in the building, and kids were able to replace any other backpack with the clear backpack and carry it throughout the day. That's something that's worked for kids.
Okay, so
But-
you have it on the supply list, but
Yeah.
now we're going to order one for every student.
I put it on there prior to all this
So,
conversation happening,
It's
so.
an awful lot of extra backpacks.
Well,
If most of them are complying now, then you're.
I don't know that most are complying. This is the first time it's been a requirement on the supply list, so I don't know what to expect coming in.
Well, I think we need to be careful on how we're opening this up. That's all I'm saying, is at some point, we have to figure out our priorities. And safety is definitely a priority, but if we're doing safety as they enter the door, then we need to rethink some of the other things, I think. That's my personal opinion. Of course, I'm on the Safety and Security Committee, but we haven't had any meetings because we're busy with other things, unfortunately, dealing with every day. But I think that you could get some good input from employees, students, community members, with good ideas that maybe won't cost us so much money, or maybe we can start getting people to donate to some of these things when we tell them why we're doing them. If we explain it, it goes a lot easier, I think. Thank you.
Any other questions for the group while we have them here? Okay, if not, these are both items on the action report, so we can revisit comments when we get there. So I'll turn it back over to Dr. Coglanese for business architect presentation on New Wing.
Yes, we've invited our architectural firm to come back, and they have spent some time with staff members, and I've gotten a lot of input on the new wing that's going to be coming out of the high school, so I'd like to invite them to come on up. And they've got a presentation on what the new wing is looking like.
This toggles through the presentation, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It should.
We'll move through the presentation. If there's a certain area that we want to zoom into, we can do that for you. So, my name is Jake Bean with Healy Bender Patton.
Can you pull the mic up to you a little bit?
Yep. My name is Jake Bean with Healy Bender Patton Bean Architects, and I'm the director of design for the firm. And with me is Dave Patton. What you see in front of you here is the site plan. The addition is proposed to the south of the competition gym there. So you see the colored blocks there. That's going to happen out in that open grass area. If we go to the next plan, pull up here. This is a overview of the layout for the spaces. Again, this is just south of the competition gym. The yellow areas represent the academic areas of the building, so we've got 6 new classrooms proposed. These are classrooms that have been resized from earlier schemes. They, in this plan, are ending up about the same size as the current high school classrooms here. Or some feedback from staff during our meetings that we wanted to have a little bit larger classrooms because of the functions for the MEC program moving over here. In the purple block, those are offices and administration areas. Those are going to face east out towards the main parking lot. So between the green and the purple areas there, the green being the cafeteria, which we call the living room function here. It's essentially a room with cafeteria tables and some chairs, some lounge furniture in there. The green area and the purple area between that, that's where the visitors will be coming in. And again, that faces out towards the east parking lot there. Students will be entering in through the building through a drop-off drive that's immediately to the south of the addition. So you've got that loop drive that occurs around the back of the high school here. There's going to be a curb cut, and that will be the point where vehicular drop-off point where students are arriving and buses will arrive, and the students will enter in through that south door. So we've had a lot of discussion tonight here about security. There are 3 points in this new plan where security will occur. One is at that visitor entrance that I mentioned, right at the front of the building there in that purple area. It's a security office very similar to what you have here in the high school at the main entrance. That will be staffed by a security personnel. And then in the area at the south entry, there'll be a point where students are coming in, and that area has been enlarged to accommodate the future for any kind of metal detectors that the district may or may not implement. So that area was increased in size because we know that there's going to be a lot of students coming in through that door, and everybody has to be processed at that point. So that's been taken into consideration in the architectural design. As we move to the left of the plan, there's that kind of bluish block that you see there. That area of the plan is related to the manufacturing lab functions for programs here in the high school that will be relocated into that area. So entrance to that from the high school will be off this cafeteria room here, right off where the tables are stored here at the end of the corridor. That will be opened up, and that will lead into that manufacturing lab area. What's going to happen right at the node or knuckle where the MEC program functions will be relocated and where this manufacturing lab occurs, there's a little purple block that you'll see there. That's another security office. And that security office is going to control traffic that moves between the high school functions and the programs that will occur there, the academic programs in the building. We've had a lot of discussions with staff on how corridors will be controlled, where access doors will be located throughout the building, essentially cross-corridor doors to limit student movement through the corridor system there of the building, just by the nature of the program and the ability to have these functions here that are actually going to be attached to the high school. We do have a test fit here. I realize it's a little bit hard for you to see there, but we did some test fits for furniture. So a lot of our discussions with staff has been going into each room, each space, to ensure that the rooms are right-sized for the number of students and the programs that will be held in each of these spaces. So this was a test fit plan that was developed. By the way, in the yellow areas, each of these classrooms, they're sized for approximately 12 to 18 students per room. So that's the nature of the program that's being developed for the sizing of these spaces. Last component here is that area in the middle there. You'll see it kind of that tealish green color. That's the gym space that's related to these activities. So a little bit shallower ceilings than what we have out here at the current high school, but essentially that's directly kind of at the center there, or the core of the program. We do have a couple of exterior views as we have up here on the screen. This is a view kind of the southwest corner of the facility. The intent architecturally is to match materials consistent with the high school building here. So what I mean by that is brick and block construction that ties in to the current architecture out here. This is a view of the proposed view of the east entry there. So this is facing the east parking lot. There'll be a canopy structure, very similar to the other entrances here at the high school, that can be marked with the program or the facility entry, so visitors know where to go and that this is a clear entrance for those programs. You'll see there on the right side of the screen there the living room that I mentioned, the cafeteria function. That'll be somewhat glassy. It's northeast facing, so it'll be a nice, bright, airy room that's proposed in that location. And then this kind of spins around the building. You'll see the canopy there, and then the back side of the building. That area that you see kind of in the middle of the plan, that larger kind of gray area, that's essentially where the other student entry will be off the south parking drop-off drive. So that's where students will enter the facility, which is separate than the visitors. Then as we spin around the facility, this is a view of the manufacturing lab. So this manufacturing lab will essentially be what you see out the windows behind me where I'm standing here, out the cafeteria windows. This manufacturing lab is designed to be somewhat glassy and open to showcase the programs that the district here will offer in the manufacturing lab. The lab exists here currently in the building. It's in one of the former art room spaces. So there's a lot of equipment in there. Part of the goal here with this space is to provide the adequate space needed to operate these programs and to make sure all the HVAC functions and exhaust systems are in place for things like welding and wood cutting that are occurring in this space. So this is certainly going to be, an attractive addition here that will excite students. I think it's very, very powerful to see out the view from the windows here, and then the type of programs that are going to be in there are going to be very nice for the district. This is a bird's eye perspective. We're planning for flat roofs. We don't show the rooftop equipment on here, but there will be mechanical units that will be located. We're working with engineers to size all the equipment, having further discussions with the district on making sure that those systems are set up right with controls. And then the last view here I think we have is, this is of that southwest corner of the facility, and you'll see that manufacturing lab there kind of spinning out at the 45-degree angle from the building.
Can you go back to the east view?
Yeah. The visitor entry view at eye level?
Yeah.
This
So
one?
the doorway on the right, it looks like, so that's a passageway. Is it for fire exit?
On the far right of the plan here, this is going to be the passageway that allows the locker room corridor that currently exists in the high school to have free flow out of that locker room corridor to the exit. We need to be able to maintain that locker room corridor free flow so that we don't get in a situation where we have a set of locked doors at the end of the locker room corridor.
That passage would be sealed or secure from the new wing?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So students in the high school will not be able to flow directly into the program spaces. They will be able to flow out through that set of doors out to the east, but not directly into the new academic wing through a set of access control doors. Yes, that's true. Dave mentioned that set of doors is also for deliveries for kitchen functions. So okay. For daily functions for delivery of supplies, that can happen through that door because the kitchen is right off that living room.
Okay.
So I have one question, being devil's advocate here. We just got done with a very long discussion on safety, and I'm looking at this, and there's an awful lot of glass. Right up here, then the manufacturing, was that a whole wall of glass?
In the manufacturing lab, yes.
Okay. I'm going to voice my concern right now about
Sure.
that. I know we want it bright and being able to see out, but every time we have an incident at the high school, I don't know about anybody else on the board, the first thing I get is parents who say, my kid is in the cafeteria and it's all windows.
Right.
I think the first thing I see here is it's a beautiful building. Don't get me wrong, I love these drawings, but we have a lot of glass.
Sure.
A lot of glass. So I'm voicing my concerns about that. I don't know if anybody else has a concern, but I do. Because, again, active shooters come from the outside many times, and there we go.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
The only question I have is you'd mentioned that you had talked to staff or whoever.
Yep.
I just want to make sure, and I know I've said it before, that there's a discussion with the principal, the superintendent, with whoever's going to be in that building program-wise. What do they need? Because we're building it once,
Right.
and we had an issue at the junior high, and Principal Christos can attest to it right now, and Mr. Brown is repeating that. I just want to make sure that the proper communication channels are being taken place to ask the correct questions of the people that are going to be working in there. Do they have what they need? That's it.
Yeah, we did make sure that we had all the stakeholders in there. In fact, they just did another rendition of it based on staff members saying they needed a bigger classroom space. So they had to go back and change some of the walls and things like that. We only have so much square footage to use, but what their challenge was is where are we going to give the space? So I believe that was one of the modifications that you did make. And we did talk with the building principals. We had all the classroom teachers in here as well. We had director of food, we had security in there, we had various stakeholders in there. And I think you met with all of them.
Each of them. And those meetings are also still ongoing. But we are trying to hold a footprint just above 34,000 square feet, which is tied to the overall budget. So throughout the duration of the design, we've right-sized rooms as we've gone along, because there's a push and pull throughout the design that happens, and ultimately a budget to meet. So
now I want to make sure, I could be wrong, you can correct me, but I think initially at the junior high they had it a certain way, and a board member or something came and made some suggestions, and then they no longer had it. Am I right? So, yes. Right. So it wasn't that the people weren't heard. It was one person or so was heard more louder than what, was supposed to happen. So
I just want to make sure the cost could have been $600,000 or $700,000. Now it's $7 or $8 million. We just want to make sure it's done right. That's it. Just want to make sure that the costs are high now. Sure.
I just have a question, which is probably more for you. The administrative area seemed big to me. I mean, who's going to be there?
I'm sorry, the administrative what?
The staffing area. It just seemed large. I mean, I know traditionally we had the director, which is the principal, and probably an assistant and some other staff. I'm just wondering who all is in that area.
So it's pretty much a school within a school if you look at it. So we've got a PE teacher, we have classroom teachers, middle school and high school teachers. So I have special ed classrooms for both the middle school and the high school. We have social workers, psychologists.
Okay, so they're all in that
Yes,
administration.
they're housed over their counselor.
Okay.
Yes.
now, generally when you, and I don't know if you're looking at MEC being different or whatever this is being called, generally when you have a student who is sent to an alternative school, it's not still on site. Now, although it's a school within the school, it's a different building. One of the drawings showed, or one of the pictures showed that there is a door right next to the high school, which still can connect the students. So all a student would have to do is hang around somehow and be in the vicinity of whoever they just had and I'm looking at you, but this isn't up to you, who they had an incident with. So I'm not understanding, I guess the plan will sound good, but typically you try to remove the student from the learning environment in which they have, or if we're talking about expulsion, we would do it in lieu of, but we're just kind of sending them next door.
Yeah, we have security at both ends, one at that corridor, one at the front entrance, so we did take care of that. We're trying to create a more inclusive model as opposed to exclusive model, so we do want some flexibility for students to come and go and have access to other career options. So, we're not housing students with severe discipline issues that we're trying to significantly separate. We're looking at alternative pathways in order to complete class work, different models, and have it a little bit more flexible.
So what do you do with the students who have those severe incidents and we're looking at possibly expelling them, but we have it in lieu of? So do they come over to that, or what? How does that work?
Again, it's based on an individual case-by-case basis. We're working to have quite a few PBIS models here. You're going to be hearing in July. In fact, we were just meeting here prior to this with the principal of the new MEC building. We were talking about the programming. We're going to present to you in July what that will look like. But again, we still have the choices that we always had. If there's students that we can't meet their needs, then there's some opportunities for outside placement, and also, flexible grouping here, where they might have their full services in that setting for the duration of the day.
So it's like a 2-year in-school suspension.
Some of these, this is about choice. We're trying to make this a choice program where students have access.
No, I get
Yeah.
that part. I'm thinking of those students who, Kennedy has been having issues with this student. Another student has, Elijah had, and I'm sorry to you, but I know their friends, has had issues. Now this student's gotten in trouble, and now here comes Ms. Lawson saying, hey, my son said that this student is still in school, and he sees him when he goes over to the manufacturing program. And then I have my daughter, and I say, hey, this kid is still over there, and I've seen him. He is constantly giving her a look, and now she's having. That's what I'm trying to avoid, or that's what I'm trying to get you to think of, because it wouldn't be versus me feeling comfortable that this student is no longer on the school grounds. Ms. Lawson is saying it's no longer, so her kid feels safe. That's what I'm looking at, and I know that we have everything in place, but at the same time, we have to. I ask these questions so that you can assure the public somehow that this is not that they're not going to have this issue.
And again, based on individual circumstances, we're planning to design individual programming for students and craft out their schedule in order to avoid those kinds of situations. And like I said, it does have the availability to be all-inclusive, and there is a security guard that monitors the passing back and forth. So if students aren't, supposed to be in another section, then they won't be.
So I just have a couple questions here. I'm sorry, you finished?
Yes, I am.
Okay. The security guards that we were talking about for the high school, 8 or 9, I'm sorry, did that include this as well, coverage for
I don't know that answer.
Well, right now, we have metal detectors at our current MEC building, and we have a security guard there right now.
Okay, but the new addition, we haven't factored that in at all, right?
Not the one additional. We would have the remainder one maybe at the entrance, but we would have to put it in. Well, I don't think we need a metal detector at the entry point because it's already in the building. When they come in, just like they do now at MEC, we have a security guard right now. And I see what you're saying, a second person.
Whoever the entry points are.
Yeah. Well, MEC right now just uses one security guard for their entrance.
Okay. Okay. And landscaping, we did factor in landscaping?
Yes, it will be built in, be a certain component.
Your microphone, sir.
Actually, I want to go
I know.
to. That's a question to run. Dave, I know you would know this about, I'm not slighting your colleague there at all, but the rough in for the swimming pool that was roughed in when this school was built, is that completely gone now because of the new addition of this building?
Well, this addition is going in the location where that pool was planned, back in 2004. We did kind of look at it, and if the district did want to put a pool addition on here, we would. It still could be added. It wouldn't be obviously in this immediate location, but probably to the east, and there'd be some kind of probably an update to the parking lot to allow for that pool to be constructed in that location.
So currently we have some rough plumbing there now?
There's water brought to this area, so it is set up to, it was set up back when the original high school was constructed to allow for that pool to be built. So water was one of the big things that was brought here, and it's stubbed. So we're going to be extending that service for this addition.
Okay, if it is the pleasure of the board, if there's not a big expense involved with that, I would like to see that extended for future use as opposed to going back. I don't know what the cost will be. Just, it may be down the road, but next, boards, future boards to say, hey, we may want to consider a pool, and we had the opportunity to rough it in. Now we dispose of that rough in. I'm just saying if we can carry that out and not just completely abandon it in place, that we still take the opportunity to say, yeah, you still can swim in, put a swimming pool here later if you so choose, because we extended it from under this building, this proposed site right now. I don't know.
That extension is above, it's above the ceiling. I mean, it's not underground.
So it's above.
It's not underground.
So it will not really be difficult to do if we got it.
So it can be done, but they can go out to the soccer field and swim too, until we get a new.
So
I know that's what I'm saying. We need the athletic field.
we can run water to where the dome was and make an ice skate right there.
Are there any other questions? Or?
Just the last one. Given that this new building, I'm just looking at it, going from the east, good arc of the sun, the south, and the west, it's going to capture all of that sun. You ever think about any type of solar energy panels to feed the school?
We have. We've considered it and had some preliminary discussions during the design development, the possibility of having it on top of that gym that you see there.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, probably the thought process that should be considered is building wide, not just on the addition. Because as we probably all realize with solar panels, the more you have, the more energy you're going to capture. So it probably should be a comprehensive discussion about, the feasibility of that for the school, and look at it above and beyond just the addition, but across the entire school facility, and the implications that may have down the road for any roofing projects that you may have.
Okay. Have you got into the electrical design phase of this project yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've had some discussions with our engineers. We've had some preliminary discussions on both electric and HVAC systems on the engineering side with both staff and internally with our office with the engineers. And solar was one of the discussions, yes.
Okay. All right. Just if you could let the board know in the next presentation that you found some more creative ways to implement such technology.
And even if it wasn't jumping off full steam ahead with solar across the whole facility, it might be something where it's implemented into a program, especially with the manufacturing lab. And it's a way to capture student interest in the way of the future, and that would be a perfect area to do that and showcase that. That's part of the reason for the location. I do want to just follow up on one, because I don't think we answered the question on the glass at the entry. There are many ways that we could handle glass. We've had these discussions with school districts for a number of years. There is that fine balance about having too much glass and not enough, especially in how the environment feels. I think we all realize when we go into a space and there are no windows or limited windows, how much different, of a feel that has. We have done some recent buildings with large glass expanses in the cafeteria, and some of those districts have pursued film on the glass, so 3M makes a film that's a deterrent. It's not bulletproof, but it slows the intruder down. And then we have done buildings where we actually have ballistic glass in place. That we can put together some cost estimates. That could be something that is further discussed. But I encourage us to, think about that balance where we're not creating an environment that, students don't want to go to or don't feel comfortable in because there is no natural light.
Yeah, Janine, she brought up a good point. I did see years ago at a school board conference, there was a company that actually was showcasing their product with the glass. It wasn't bulletproof, but it was deterrent-proof, basically.
It's probably somewhat similar to that 3M glass. And
yes.
You can retrofit existing glass as well.
I mean, he actually took a hammer and did not compromise it.
And in the security world, I'm sure you're reading about that. That's one of the number one goals is to slow the intruder down or the situation down, because seconds matter in these cases. So, if you have provisions where you're adding the film to the glass, it can be a big help in those conditions. The other thing about glass at the entry too, is just the consideration of, there are certainly camera systems around the building that are monitoring, what's going on in the exterior, but the cameras are only giving you a snippet or, a very limited view. By having some visibility from the security office at the front door out to the entry, it's kind of that first line of defense about what's going on with that direct eye contact to the parking lot. What's going on? Why does the car keep circling the parking lot? Oh, wait, this person's coming into the entry and they look like they're unhappy. Those are the cases where you get on a phone right away and, call in the forces to, address the situation. So I encourage us, all together as a group to not always look at glass as a bad thing, but finding the right products for how we can balance that off, especially in the educational environment. It's important. We don't want to create a space where nobody has fun, or you can't enjoy the educational space because you're in four walls. So we'll continue that discussion as we move the design forward. We heard the discussion here loud and clear on everybody's comments tonight, so we appreciate that.
Okay.
Can you share next steps for the board?
Sure.
Where we're at?
Well, we're going to be continuing the development of the design, starting the detailing, working with our engineers on structural systems, mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems. We are looking to have this project out to bid in early August, if we can meet that deadline, to allow for it to be constructed and open for August of 2023. So we have a lot of work to do to get to that point, but we have a good team involved in our office, and Jake and myself are working with our staff to meet those deadlines.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up is end of the year academic report, teaching and learning.
Right. Good evening, this evening to the board, to Dr. Coglanies, to our families, our students, and certainly to our staff. I want to take this moment to acknowledge and thank our 201U staff, anyone and everyone who shares the work of the district and whose choices affect student experiences. We know that these times have been challenging, and we want everyone to know that all work is noticed, and this is our public opportunity to say thank you once again. So OTL will close the year out with our Illinois report card academic report. As we reported at the beginning of the year, because of the pandemic, the ISB had 3 separate reporting periods for the Illinois report card. And so this is our final report card. This will also be updated on the district website for families to take a look at. As we know, we were put in the pandemic, and in the year 2019-2020, we did not have a standardized assessment that was administered at the March of that year. And then in the 2020-21 school year, ISB, along with other states, received a waiver, and we will be reporting partial data for that year. As we have completed this past school year for 21-22, all of the offices are in the process now of our summer verification for our fall data that will come up for fall of '22. So all of our year's testing, we will report that in November as we do annually. What we have noticed from our data from the entire year is that students are making progress. They are not at the rate that is consistent with our pre-pandemic levels. And then as a district that we are continuing to have challenges in math, and we are developing a plan to address those deficits. In the calculations on ISB, and you will be able to go onto the ISB report card site, which is illinoisreportcard.com. There are a lot of terms that are used, lots of flags that are used that talk about there's calculations with concerns, there's no statewide data, and the term of unfinished learning, learning loss, or unfinished instruction. Again, this report card data was issued in April, and with this third release, ISB decided not to include some of our assessments, which were IAR, SAT, Access, our DLM, and they did include some of our participation rates. Again, the state realized that the data was skewed, and we will be moving forward when we come back in the fall with new releases of data. So in the latest report card, we do have our graduation rate, which is 91%, dropout rate, our average class size is calculated, and as well as salaries. And this is the final report card for this school year. Again, what's out, participation rates, and what came in from last year's science assessments were not valid. IAR, summative designations, our kids report, which is our kindergarten readiness report, was not ready. And then there was going to be a new initiative for rolling out with our college and career readiness reports. The state has decided to give some leeway and allow additional time for those assessments and testing. Again, when you go on to illinoisreportcard.com and type in the school district, this is part of the data that will show up and be part of our report. Another table showing the partial release throughout the year, and that we are finalizing this data for this past year. We did include for the board report, and the board received copies of our internal data of some assessments that we give. Here's a report of our normal assessments that we give every year. As we come back into the fall, all of these assessments will be in place. And again, this will be offered on the district website. This is our Early Learning Center data. They use an assessment called Teaching Strategies Goals, and this is their results. Again, we have some decreases and some increases of that data from fall to spring. And then, oops, go back. This is our observational tool that our Early Learning Center teachers are used to observe students and rate them.
What are traveling skills?
Traveling skills. My thought, I do not administer this assessment, but watching them walk around, going from one place to another. These are our pre-K 3- and 4-year-olds.
Come up to the mic, Mr. Brown.
You have such a big increase in the math section there.
In the developmental skills of early learning? Yes.
Yes. And I was going to comment about, you were saying that our math overall in the upper grades are not so copacetic, right?
Yes, and I will say, as a district, we have struggled with math, and we have done some things of putting some tools in place to help us. One thing is that as a committee, we now have vertical alignment of our standards, and what that does is articulate from one grade to the next what pre-K students did, what K students did, and then it articulates all the way up. So that teachers, as they're working together, can better understand what happened in the grade level before them and then what is expected at the next grade level.
Yeah, I think success could come from that method.
Absolutely.
So we're getting them young here, and that's a good sign, and we need to feed on that.
Agreed, absolutely, and that is the main, one of the lead to student achievement is having this vertical assessment and putting those assessments in place and those standards in place. And we have the beauty, I say this all the time, we are a unit district, and we don't have to depend on feeder schools coming from all over the place. We are one. And so that is the beauty, that we get to talk to one another and our staff gets to work together.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And then we go to our NWA assessment. Again, this is our spring assessment. We are working with our data company, ECRA, that will talk to us about our student growth, but we didn't want to end the year and go into a new fiscal year without giving this information. We have, in some categories, we have some decreases, we have some increases, and again, we have put a recovery plan in place. We have been reading all of the research that goes with the pandemic and what will be needed to close some of the deficits and achievement gaps that we have. But this is at the elementary level, and this is our spring map data. And then this is our middle school and our high school data. As we talk about our recovery plan, we know, that our work is in the goals in our strategic plan. OTL is in charge of 14 out of those 17 goals, and we're working with all building leaders and teachers on completing that strategic plan and reaching the paramount of those goals. We do have tutoring that is offered 24/7 to students, and teachers are reaching out and offering that service so that students, when they are at home and away from the classroom, and sometimes even in the classroom, utilize that tutoring service. We are looking to overcome the challenges with staffing, as well as for the mental health aspects, working with our student advocate and culture, climate liaison at the high school level, bringing in more capacity with our governor state teacher interns, working with building leaderships and their 10 of 10 team leaders with their school improvement plans, monitoring and personalizing learning so that every student gets what that student needs, looking at our professional development for the upcoming year, and listening to what teachers say they would like in their PD for the upcoming year. So OTL will be carving out what that professional development looks like. Also taking a look at our school climate and culture surveys. We have done some internal surveys as well as the 5 essential surveys. And then on the horizon, we are developing parent academy programs for our families for support. We are looking at our science curriculum, and we are developing teams as well as looking at this from the equity lens and developing not only our equity teams, but equity work at each building level. As always, the dashboard is located on the website. That is the icon on the website for the public to take a look. That is updated. Our strategic plan is updated at least 4 times a year, and then we address the board 3 times a year with that data and information. Upcoming, we have been on webinars and calls with the state that there will be some changes for the 22-23 report card that we will report in the fall. As I stated before, we will be looking at our professional development needs assessment and not only listening to the voices of teachers in terms of what they want, but also driving the work through the strategic plan. And then we have our special ed needs assessment, and we will be taking a look at that, I believe, next month. Questions?
Of course, I have one.
Yes.
You and I had a brief conversation at CSK on the day of the Coretta Scott King event.
Yes.
And we discussed that, I believe it was related to COVID, that there was an altered grading schedule and more time was given to turn assignments in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Are we now going back to pre-COVID ways?
I don't think that the grading system changed. What you're speaking of was not related, to COVID. I think it had to do with the zero-based grading. There were some concerns, I think it was brought up at a board meeting, there were some concerns about zero-based grading and at the middle school and high school. I did present to the board in an FYI that we use evidence-based and research that tells us what are the best grading mechanisms that we're using, and not using zeros. I think that was the question that was asked, that a grade is weighted at 50%. What does that do to a student's average? And if we want to think about it in terms of, let's think about like temperature. If we do, you get 100-degree day, no pun intended for today, 100-degree day, 100-degree day, 100-degree day, 3 days in a row, and then you get a 50%. What is the average over those 4 days versus if you get 100, 100, 100, and a 0%, then a student who had a challenging day, that zero measurement doesn't measure what that student was unable to do, but maybe that student just had a hard time when they got that 50%. So the pre-COVID, there wasn't a change in that grading from middle school and high school.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood that was pre-COVID. So the other part of it was, and of course, I brought this up because I was the one who had someone come to me about it, that we're allowing them, say, 2 to 4 weeks extra to turn in an assignment, and that it's harder and harder on the teachers because as it gets closer to the end of the semester, they have until 2 days before the end of the semester to turn their work in, and the teachers then have to grade it all and things like that. So you and I never got to finish the conversation, so I don't even know if that's true or not. So I'm trying to feel that out.
And I do think that is unfair to teachers, that to get a stack load of papers to grade, a day before grades are due is not fair to a teacher. So I think that we can put some protocols in place, that we set some deadlines. I think this is probably where we talked about pandemic mandates that were given out by the state, that there was to be no harm to students because of the pandemic. And so maybe that's where it got crossed. But I do think that in working with the middle school and high school, that we can set some definite deadlines so that a day before or a week before, teachers don't have this overload of papers to grade. But we give students the opportunity to show their mastery for a skill and not penalize them for that.
I kind of have a different perspective on that.
Okay, Dr.
I
Hall?
do think that it would depend on the student and the situation before we say absolutely. And I don't think you were saying that. I'm just saying I think it depends on the student and the situation. So I worked at Naperville, where it's just our kids compared to their kids is absolutely not fair.
Right.
So a lot of them have 504s. It was about 600 504s in Naperville North. That's just one school versus what we might have here. And that was all to get extra time on a test.
Yes.
Parents would complain. So their parents knew how to take advantage of the system. So then you have the other part where, in my job, I would sit in the room and a student would be behind in the class, and all of a sudden the student now has anxiety. So now this student gets a year and a half to make up the class compared to our students in this neighborhood. A teacher would look at that and say, well, he should get whatever, by the semester, by the year. So I'm looking at, if we start looking at different schools and what they're doing versus what's, this is nothing against teachers, but what's comfortable for teachers and what works best for students. That's what I would say. I don't know what they do at the Lincoln Ways or anything, but I know Naperville North, who had a 25.6 on the ACT average that they would brag about, would definitely look out for their students and give them whatever time they needed for the most part to succeed. And so before we start talking about limiting and all of that, I think we should really consider what's best for the students. And my daughter, the oldest one who didn't come here, who went to Marist, I remember the teacher say, well, this is a college prep school. And I think sometimes teachers forget that the key word is prep. We're preparing them for college. They're not in college, and then they often forget that they probably had times where they needed leniency from a professor. So that's just my take on it.
And I agree with you, Dr. Hall, that we're not saying that students don't come first. If we are in the business of educating students and their needs come first. But we are also saying on a case-to-case basis that you should not possibly have 10 assignments missing the day before and turn into those assignments unless you have circumstances. And that, again, that relationship building with teachers, it varies on what you're able to do as an educator, that I know your situation, I have a relationship with you and your parent, I know what's going on that may have prevented you from turning in those 10 assignments.
And I'm sorry, but I have to say this, and when we look at relationship building, it's definitely part of the teacher's job to build relationships. Because they've heard me say before, I remember my youngest daughter had an 89.9 in math, and he would not change her grade. He wouldn't give her anything extra. And she was sure that there were other students who had less than her that he worked with because he had a relationship with them. And when you start talking about relationships, when she got over to her new school, we never used this term before. The first thing all she would say is, I love my school. They want to build relationships with the students. And she felt like nobody wanted to build a relationship with her here. That could have been because her mother was who she was and they assumed that she was a certain way. But I really would hope that we're starting to push and hire teachers who want to build relationships with all students, not just some students.
Absolutely, we agree. And that is part of us taking very seriously that culture survey that asks students what their needs are. Not only does it ask for input from the students, but students and their families as well.
And maybe in that relationship building, we have the teachers telling administration that they're having an issue, that maybe they do have 10 students who haven't turned anything in and they're 3/4 of the way through, and can they get help for the children or something? Because the couple of people who contacted me said that the problem was that they actually had most of their students wait until the end because they knew they could do it. So maybe it's not only just that there's issues, but that maybe the children have taken advantage of it to the extent that they're passing it on that, hey, I don't have to do it, so take your time and do it. And we know of at least one student who did it because other kids were doing it. Not because they couldn't do it or they didn't want to do it, but if they're not going to do it, well, then I'm not going to do it. And again, I think that has to do with the relationship and the fact that if that teacher is noticing it I think that teacher needs to reach out and say, hey, I've got 12 kids now instead of 1 or 2. What can I do? What do I need to change? It's not a bad thing to ask for help.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if our teachers feel comfortable. I have no idea. If they actually come and say, I need help, I have a class that just doesn't want to turn in their work or whatever, because the couple emails I got made it sound like this was very prevalent out in the middle school and high school, that they were taking advantage of it instead of just doing it when it was due.
And I would also say that the relationships with the principals and the teachers will help with that too, because they do and will monitor grading and monitoring and having discussions in their PLCs about what's going on and taking a look at grade books, and again, huddling around students who need that additional support and additional time.
I just want to take this in a little different direction, going to the elementary schools. So the data is showing what percentage of kids are at grade level, and I think the data is showing huge disparities between CSK and the other schools, which is great. I mean, I'm glad CSK is doing well, but what I would like us to look at is what we could do, what we could give, what resources the other schools need to get those students up while keeping CSK where they are and go even higher. I'm happy that they're doing well, but I really want to look at what we could do to help the other schools, especially the lowest performing ones, to try to bring everybody up.
Yes, I do think that there's some root cause analysis that principals are being asked to work with their leadership teams and PLC teams and discover why there's this achievement gap. You know, we are not taking anything away from CSK and the wonderful job that the team does there, but there's some other factors that occur in other buildings that we take a look at and try and give those additional supports to those schools.
Yeah, so I want us to continue to look at bringing more art or music or everything that we could get in the other schools. I'm not proposing every school's IB, but just that we could get as many resources in those other schools as we can.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, one more thing.
Yes.
And I know this has been thrown around, but maybe it's a thought. How come all the schools can't slowly become IB? I know it's cost, but if we can phase it in and they can become IB, I think that would help. Again, I go by my own child. I think because she went through the IB system, she was able to go to her next high school and score the highest that anybody has ever scored for an IB diploma program in the district.
Congratulations, Kennedy.
Thank you.
And Dad, too.
Well, I didn't do it. Right, but I think that IB program obviously makes a difference. And her being in the IB program, she somewhat had a distinct advantage over the other kids who, not that they couldn't handle it, but she knew going in what it took, what the mindset was, and I just think that that has made a difference, and I think it makes along with other factors, of course, but the curriculum makes a difference. I would say.
I do. I think there are some great advantages to having an IB program. One is that verbiage that you're talking about, that inquiry base, that higher order thinking, that student-led thinking that goes along with the IB curriculum. And we've definitely seen that in the middle school program as well, that those students that are part of the MYP program are progressing. But I also think that there's a pathway, as Dr. Kara has talked about, for every child, and that we can have some options in terms of what families want and what students need.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the end of the year academic report?
Just one quick question.
Yes.
Dr. Hall had mentioned something about an ACT. We're no longer administering the ACT. Is that a correct statement or not?
We give the SAT.
That's correct. Okay. So what was our results from our kids taking the SAT?
Our results come in July. I believe we received some preliminary numbers in June, and believe it or not, I could not get my account to work, but we will be able to report that. I can put those numbers in the FYI once I put them in the report, but they come out normally in July, but I think we received some preliminary numbers in June.
Okay.
June 4th.
And the graduation rate, I believe you said, was 91%.
Correct.
That's pretty consistent. That's pretty good. I thought it would be lower. I think since my tenure here on the board, I think I've seen an 89. But for the most part, it's been in the low 90s. And in your opinion, is that good? Obviously, 100% is probably a target, but...
Yeah, and we want to stay, I believe we are above the state rate with our graduation rate. And certainly we are putting in programs at the high school. And again, we're talking about relationships and engagement and all the things that we know that make kids want to come to school and be part of and be productive citizens and work with us. So I think that I hope to see an increase in that number actually. And again, as we begin and work with Mr. Hollyfield, it is a new requirement under the state law that we provide. Finally, the pathways, that it's a mandate that we put in those endorsement pathways for our students.
Okay.
So that will certainly go to our increase.
Now, somewhere I got lost in the tracks over the last couple of years. We had No Child Left Behind Act. We had Common Core. We had the growth model. Where exactly are we at now? I'm sorry.
So now we have the Everyone Succeeds Act,
Okay.
And I think that was put out by President Obama. But again, it has criteria that our students must meet and accountability pieces. I will say that the state is looking at those accountability pieces because we know that as a whole child, we have to look at every component. That, as a student, I may not be the best test taker, but I'm getting all A's. And so we look at the whole child and what that child needs to be successful. And so the ESSA Act allows us to do that.
So the ESSA Act. So from a federal level, former President Obama initiated that. So we're not doing anything different here in the state, because some states kind of do a little different with their curriculum. I know it comes from the national level, certain things, but we're following the national educational recommendation.
Yes, everyone has to follow that. And then again, we get to decide what programming we want to put in place. For instance, the amount of AP courses that we offer. There are advantages that we have that other districts don't have.
Say that again.
There are advantages that we have that other districts don't have.
All right, that's our new motto.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next up is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that a board member would like to have taken off for separate approval?
Does that include the action reports, or are we am I choosing?
No, just the consent agenda.
Just consent, okay.
Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Moved.
Second.
Dr. Paglanese, would you please read off the items on the consent agenda?
Item 1, approve regular meeting minutes of May 17, 2022. Item 2, approve regular meeting closed session minutes of May 17, 2022. Item 3, approve special meeting minutes of June 14, 2022. Item 4, approve special meeting closed session minutes of June 14, 2022. Under business, number 1, approve financial report. Item 3, with teaching and learning, is to approve the district consolidated plan.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Okay, roll call.
Brown is an aye. Mrs. Galbert?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish?
Aye.
Vice President Roop?
Aye.
President Albrecht.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, next up, action reports. First item on the agenda, can I get a motion to approve the FY22, fiscal year 22 amended budget?
Move.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Galbert,
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish,
Aye.
Brown is an aye. Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Vice President Root,
Aye.
President Albrecht.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, Mr. Brown, are you ready with your script for the next one?
I believe I got the right one. Yes.
Okay. The next item for consideration is a resolution for the intent to issue $8 million funding bonds for the purpose of paying claims against the district. Based on the advice of bond counsel, the entire resolution does not have to be read aloud since it was posted as part of tonight's agenda in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. Therefore, Mr. Brown, as Secretary of the Board of Education, would you read aloud the title of the resolution?
Title of the resolution is Resolution Declaring the Intentions to Issue $8 million in funding bonds for the purpose of paying claims against the district and directing the notice of such intention be published as provided by law.
Okay. May I have a motion to accept the resolution declaring the intent to issue $8 million funding bonds for the purpose of paying claims against the district and directing that notice of such intention to be published as provided by law?
Moved. Second.
As a summary of the parameters included within the resolution, the following pertinent terms are summarized. One, the district has current outstanding bonds and debt. Two, some of the current outstanding bonds and debt will be refunding to maintain the district's current annual debt payment and lower the annual debt payment in future years. Based on the preceding information, do any members have questions or discussion on the resolution being presented? With no further discussion or questions, Mr. Brown, will you take a roll call vote to approve the resolution as presented?
Mrs. Galbert,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Brown is an aye. Mr. Sawalish,
Aye.
Vice President Root,
Aye.
President Albrecht.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, the next item for consideration is a resolution declaring the intent to issue 15 million working cash bonds for the purpose of increasing the working cash fund and directing notice of such intention to be published as provided by law. Based on the advice of bond counsel, the entire resolution does not have to be read aloud since it was posted as part of tonight's agenda in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. Therefore, Mr. Brown, as Secretary of the Board of Education, would you read aloud the title of the resolution?
The title of such resolution is the resolution declaring the intention to issue $15 million in working cash bonds of Community Unit School District Number 201U, Will County, Illinois, for the purpose of increasing the working cash fund of said school district and directing the notice of such intentions be published in the manner provided by law.
Okay, may I have a motion to accept the resolution declaring the intent to issue $15 million working cash fund bonds of Community Unit School District Number 201U, Will County, Illinois, for the purpose of increasing the working cash fund of said school district and directing that notice of such intention be published in a manner provided by law?
Move.
Second.
Sorry, who moved? Bill?
Bill. Okay. As a summary of the parameters included within the resolution, the following pertinent items are summarized. The district is authorized to incur debt and issue bonds for the purpose of increasing the working cash fund. The board has agreed that it is in the best interest of the district that the fund be increased. Proceeds of the bonds will be deposited into the working cash fund and will be used for projects stated in the short-term facility plan that include but are not limited to temporary cooling rooms at Balmoral Elementary School, Crete Elementary School, Monee Education Center, and Coretta Scott King Magnet School, demolition of the sixth grade center, demolition of the dome, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning at Balmoral Elementary School, Crete Elementary, Coretta Scott King Magnet School, Talala Elementary School, and the Early Learning Center, electrical upgrades at Balmoral Elementary School, Crete Elementary School, Coretta Scott King Magnet School, Talala Elementary School, and the Early Learning Center, plumbing upgrades at Balmoral Elementary School, Crete Elementary School, and Coretta Scott King Magnet School, LED lighting at the Crete Monee High School, and addition at the Crete Monee High School, cosmetic improvements at Balmoral Elementary School, Crete Elementary School, and Coretta Scott King Magnet School, Talala Elementary School, and the Early Learning Center. And notice of intention will be published in the Chicago Tribune. Based on the preceding information, do any members have questions or discussion of the resolution being presented? Okay. With no further discussion or questions, Mr. Brown, will you take a roll call vote to approve the resolution as presented?
Mrs. Galbraith? Brown is the president. Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mr. Sawanish?
Aye.
Vice President Rube?
Aye.
President Albert?
Aye. Motion passes with, it was 5 aye votes and 1 present?
That's correct.
Okay. Can I get a motion to establish the date of July 19, 2022 for a public hearing concerning the intent of the Board of Education of Community Unit School District Number 201U, Will County, Illinois, to sell $15 million working cash fund bonds and $8 million in funding bonds?
Moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I'm sorry, Bill, you second?
Okay. Roll call when you're ready.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mr. Sawanish?
Aye.
Brown is an aye. Mrs. Galbraith?
Aye.
Vice President Rube?
Aye.
President Albert?
Aye. Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the certificate of payment in the amount of $332,032.17 to RL Sohol General Contractor, Inc. for the 2022 renovation work at the Early Learning Center in Talala Elementary School?
Moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this item? Okay. Mr. Brown, roll call.
Brown is an aye. Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mr. Sawanish?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith?
Aye.
Vice President Rube?
Aye.
President Albert?
Aye. Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve a certificate of payment in the amount of $361,883.90 to RL Sohol General Contractor, Inc. for the 2022 renovation work at Balmoral Elementary School?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I'm sorry, who's second? Jenny?
Okay. Roll call when you're ready.
Brown is an aye. Mr. Sawanish?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith?
Aye.
Vice President Rube?
Aye.
President Albert?
Aye. Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve a certificate of payment in the amount of $522,150 to RL Sohol General Contractor, Inc. for the 2022 renovation work at Crete Elementary School? So moved.
Second.
I moved.
When you vote, Bill second. For you moving that motion, President, I'm calling your name first. President Albrecht.
Aye.
Brown is an aye. Mr. Sawalish.
Aye.
Dr. Hall.
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith.
Aye.
Vice President Rubin.
Aye.
Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve a certificate of payment in the amount of $335,167.37 to RL Sohol General Contractor, Inc. for the 2022 renovation work at Coretta Scott King Magnet
Did you
School?
skip one? You skipped number 7?
Nope.
No,
No?
we just
Okay.
did 7.
Sorry, I didn't check it off.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Brown is an aye. Dr. Hall.
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish.
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith.
Aye.
Vice President Rubin.
Aye.
President Albrecht.
Aye. Motion carries.
President Albrecht, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to table numbers 9 and 10.
So,
Is that right?
yes, so
Table or is it postponed?
I think you'd have to do it one at a time.
Unless you allow them to be combined. But yeah, you should properly should do one at a time. Motion to table 9 and a motion to table 10. So
Okay.
you'd like a motion to table item number 9.
Is it table, Bill, or is it postponed?
It can be either.
What's the difference?
Well, usually in a larger assembly, when you're tabling something, you're doing it to a defined date that you're coming back, but in common parlance that you all use it in a school district, table and postpone has the same effect. It's going to be tabled until it's put back on the agenda for consideration and a vote before the board, unless you want to table it to a date certain, but I don't think that's your intention. You want to table it until a time period that you're prepared to make deliberation and decision on it, so.
He sounds like a
So I'm
lawyer.
going to make a motion to table
He
item
sounds
9.
like a lawyer, don't he? You should,
I rolled over when I
you
was
knew what he
listening.
was, right?
I want to make a motion to table item 9.
So, there's a motion to table the purchase and installation of 18 metal detectors for Crete Monee High School and Middle School in the amount of $82,797.75. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So will I list that particular line item or action item as 8.A alpha point 9? I will list that there as being postponed
Table.
by taking a vote? Or
Right now,
table,
there's a
or
motion
table.
to table. It hasn't been seconded. It's been recognized by the chair. If there's a second, there will be a vote. If
But-
it passes, it will be tabled. If it fails, then there will be subsequent action on the
But,
item.
so, if it passed, it would be listed as that
Number 9.
8
No, it'd be number 9.
No.
No, it's under 8.
No, it's under 8.8. 8 point
Oh,
alpha point 9.
yeah.
Yes.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so continue, okay, the document that, okay.
Second. I second.
Yeah. Okay, so,
Confused everything.
Is there any discussion with that?
Yeah. Let's
So
open
I
up
guess
for
the only
discussion.
discussion is, in my opinion, if we can narrow it back down to the high school and give Mr. Seamanson an opportunity to figure out, sorry about that. Opportunity to hire, what does he need to work here? And I think Mr. Hollifield is correct. Work here first. Come up with, are we going to be able to staff it? Are we going to be able to handle it before we move forward? Because again, the way I look at it is we were addressed last week that we're doing the high school and then we come today and it's both. But at least comprehensive plan, definitely want it safe for everybody, for the teachers, the staff, and the students. But I think we start at one place and go from there.
Can I add something, though? I would like to see as part of the plan consideration, and this was brought up in public comment today, to have a metal detector in every school, not for students coming in and out, but for visitors during the day.
Sure.
minimum.
So
So in that implementation, at least start somewhere, and we can always evolve to somewhere, but at
Right.
least we got to start somewhere.
But in consideration of the plan, whether we act on that day one or not, but I think that's where we want to get, because
Yes.
Okay, so I'm clear. You'd like me to come back with just a plan to show you what it would look like at the high school only with what it would cost for the training of that and the suggested amount of.
And the staffing.
Staff members. I mean, with the prediction of can we fill them or not.
Well, that's correct. And
Yeah.
then if, at the least, if we have an event here of any kind, any visitor that comes through here, right? I mean, at the very least.
Visitor, contractor.
Anything.
Us.
Us, yeah, parents.
Right.
What about, I'm just going to throw this out real quick. We have a vendor, Coca-Cola machine, whatever. He pulls up in a dock, comes through that door. Are we looking to monitor that place
Yep.
with a metal detector
It
on
would
the
be,
dock?
yes, it would be anybody in our building.
Right, so at minimum.
So again, I will come up with a high school only plan with how many metal detectors. I think we had said 8 originally. I think you're also looking to see the cost of additional staff members, which would be security guards, as well as the training.
And my question to that, and I don't know if we can get into this, is that are all security personnel going to be trained so that if
That is
somebody
correct.
is on vacation? So what I'm wondering is you have 4 people assigned to metal detectors, say. 2 call in sick. You're now pulling 2 from somewhere else. Where do we get replacements for those?
All the security guards in the district would be trained.
Okay,
Because they
but
rotate.
if you have people calling in sick, you've got to pull from another location. How are you filling those locations? I think you need all of that in the plan, because you're going to have people call in sick. You're going to have people who have sick
And-
leave,
and
whatever.
That's what we do.
How are you going to staff those so that you're sure we've got the right personnel at the right spot, doing the right thing at the right time? That's all part of the plan in my
Correct.
book.
And like I said, that would be up to our director as to how he would manage the moving people. But our intent was to have every single security guard trained in that, as well as other perhaps deans.
Okay, well, that needs to all be in the plan then.
And I think we start here and perfect it and get a procedure down. Then you can implement a long-term ranges. Can we do the junior high? Can we do so on and so on?
Absolutely. And then I will also come up with a separate plan, as what President Albrecht said, 1 metal detector in each building. What does that look like? All right, so we will come back with both of those as
And
just a
and does it
presentation.
have any,
only.
does that have staffing implications, and, you know, what, so.
Yes, all right, so we'll do presentation only, part
Now,
3.
do you see a problem? Again, this is a big community issue too. Will it be a problem just doing minimum electronic wise survey? Can you do
We
that?
certainly can, absolutely.
And just something not so intrusive, sending mailers out or anything like that.
So it'd be
At
a
least
survey
have some
monkey.
sample there.
Where would you like the sample survey to go? We
I
have
mean, I definitely would like
all
to see some
stakeholders?
students and staff get some, if not all.
Somehow
Yeah.
people-
And I'd like to see what they have to say.
It may be a small sampling, you understand.
Right, but I
at
think
least
you need to
we
get
have
it out
something.
there.
Okay.
Definitely the unions, I mean, what are their feelings and what do we need to do to make sure we're meeting our contracts?
All right, I will have
Okay.
as part of our
So we have
presentation.
a motion there. Any other questions or discussion or direction for our superintendent? Okay, then roll call.
Brown is an aye. Mrs. Galbert,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mr. Solange,
Aye.
Vice President Roux,
Aye.
President Albrecht.
Aye. So the motion is tabled.
I
Would
would
you
like
like
to
to-
make a motion to table item number 8A, is that right? 8A10, or for you, Mo? 8A10? No, we
You
did
just
9.
said 8, yeah, that's 8,
8,
8
10.
alpha 10.
Yep.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to table that.
Okay. So there's a motion out there to table the purchase of 2,600 medium clear backpacks at $16.45 each, and 1,500 large clear backpacks at $18.45 each for distribution to students in grades 2 through 12 in the Crete Monee School District in the amount of $70,445. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, open up for questions and comments.
I just want to say I don't think we should table this. I think we should vote on it simply because he just explained that there's a shortage, and I don't see an issue. I don't really see an issue with distributing book bags because if we're talking about safety, that's just a small measure of what we can do to ensure that we see at least what's in the bag. So
Yeah,
that's my take on it.
So your ability to do that would then vote no to table it, and then we would,
Well, yes.
then we would go back to the original motion.
Yes.
So-
And I
Correct.
think that we should.
Correct.
I believe.
So Jane's concern was a cost factor, I believe. If I go back, it was
Yeah,
a cost
I
factor.
don't think anybody disagrees with the clear book bags, just does it have to be the district's responsibility to pay for them all?
Yeah.
Correct.
So right now, I thought I heard Kokona, Crystal. She said that was part of her.
It's on her middle school supply list.
That.
So that's my other concern is.
That the parents pay for, right?
Right,
Her
but
supply
those are the
list.
things the
Correct.
child
Is she the only
needs.
school, to your knowledge, or no?
Well, we would encourage all the other schools to have clear backpacks as well.
But, okay, so we don't know. So we don't know what the true cost on this. We
At
just
the high
saying-
school level, it was always, when mine were here, it was a requirement. And that was only a couple
And
of
I
years
thought
back.
it was at the middle school also, from what I understood from parents, that they could come with the regular one and transfer to a clear.
So could this be that this number, parents right now is already doing this?
Well,
That's
there are a
what
lot
I-
of kids with clear backpacks, so they're coming from somewhere.
At the high school and middle school, I don't think it's ever been a requirement at the
At the
elementary
elementary,
schools.
Oh, at the,
Right, it's never has been.
Right,
Because
right,
they don't necessarily carry their bags around like. the
right.
elementary.
They hang them on hooks in the hall.
but this price is for the whole district?
Yeah, second through.
Yep.
12th
Second
grade.
through 12?
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think maybe just alter it in some way. I just think, I understand people looking at that and seeing $70,000 for book bags.
I think the concern,
is
and
pretty-
I get that, the
Yeah.
rationale, I should say, for doing this was to ensure compliance. Because as you know, sometimes when things aren't provided, they do not come. So then it becomes a lot of personnel issue with having to follow up with backpacks, calling parents, and it becomes a defiance issue or a student discipline issue at some point. So that was all.
So if we table this, what are we looking, what more
Well,
information?
because you provide doesn't mean they're going to use it anyhow. I mean, so I guess I have a lot of negativity on this just because at some point, where does it become the school's responsibility versus the parent responsibility? And I totally understand it's a safety measure, but it's, I mean, I don't know. I've had quite a few parents who are very upset that we're going to put $70,000 up. We got a email or a text that was sent to a board member's spouse complaining about it. So I think that if we're already putting it on supply lists and we go out and buy all these, that to me, we've wasted a lot of money because they're saying they're not going to give them another one. Maybe they'll sell them one. I've witnessed kids get another one because they've forgotten it or whatever. So don't really know how the policies are being enforced, but I think this is a lot of money that
I
that we
think
need to
somebody,
look
I
at.
think somebody brought up that, I mean, the parents are going to buy the kids a backpack anyway. So-
Correct.
So
For the
I
most
think,
part.
I think the cost ought to be borne by the parent.
And that's my feeling.
And if they can't, maybe it's something kind of.
The Education Foundation maybe could help them.
Or, yeah, for students who can't afford it or we have a problem, but somehow have them available either for them to buy them from the school or Education Foundation or whatever to help fund some of that, so.
Or corporate sponsors again.
But if, I mean, you know, you put pencils on your required list and you show up to school with pencils, right?
Correct. That's my.
Or
that's
the
my
school will give them to them if they don't have.
They will loan them for the day.
Not always.
Some.
Now, and I'll say, have you all, I mean, it's not real easy to find clear book bags in the store. So we can't say that the parents are negligent because it is very difficult to find clear book bags in the store.
So would the expectations be for all parents that it's either you allow your kid to have a backpack that's clear or none at all? Is that the expectation? The kids are not to come to school with a backpack that is not clear.
Essentially, that's what's supposed to happen. They're supposed to go around from class to class with a clear or meshy backpack.
But we do not have that policy written yet, correct?
Okay.
We don't have the written word on that yet, correct? That hasn't been written down anywhere. So
we don't
that's
have
the
any
other.
like title. I'm sorry. We don't have any like title funds that in which we can.
I believe we were looking at some ESSER money on this.
See, again,
And what money?
ESSER money.
ESSER money. Okay, what were you going to say?
You know, my thing here is with our principal and the team that was up there, Pat, back in the back there, said this was a success story with the clear backpacks and all of that. So we definitely want any backpack that's here on the school grounds to be clear. To be clear. To be clear? No pun intended. To be clear. But proceduralized, that directive is not out there, and the procedure is not.
And are they gonna monitor it? Because as we know, that one, a student
the issue.
said,
Sure.
walk through the building
But not a
every
problem.
day.
Nobody can stop it.
Well,
So is it going to be taken care of? I don't want to spend $70,000 and it not be monitored or taken care of. That would just be not.
See, I don't want to
financially
lose. I don't want to lose taking advantage of the opportunity to have clear backpacks for our kids, knowing the right verbiage is out there and the directives to the parents, and
And what fund would it come out of? Like I think somebody
Right, that's
asked.
what I was asking.
Where
believe Ken had
if it's
talked
coming
about
out of a
funds,
fund
yep.
that's not going to affect, programming or anything like that.
Oh, here it is. I think the question was asked, could we use title funds? So remember, title funds are based on per pupil. So we've already, Mr. Gennaro has met with the building principals, and we've done our budgeting for title. In fact, he's probably hitting send right now. But we do, if I'm not mistaken, we were going to use ESSER funds, and that would have to be confirmed with Ken. Brian believes that possibly might be the pool that we were going to pull from.
Okay.
I didn't know that, and the community doesn't, and I understand where they're coming from, so.
It does not. It may require that we amend the budget, but Ken has those funds figured out for where that money is going to come from. But I do believe that it was from ESSER funds.
So Dr. Carroll, when can we know that? And when would we inform the parents that this is either way?
If we were going in that direction, what we were going to do is use our community newsletter that was going to go out at the end of July. Also, our building principals, when they had their welcome back letter, would be in that letter as well. So that was how we were going to communicate.
So when would we know if we're going to use ESSER funds?
Mr. Surma just texted us and said we can use ESSER funds.
There you go.
But
Mr.
then
Hollyfield.
Tell Mr. Sermon to enjoy himself wherever he's at.
He's on the road.
Mr. Hollyfield, did you have a comment?
He's not talking to me anymore,
For the
Mr.
board.
Hollyfield.
Yes, I wanted to say something about the clear backpacks. Yes, I know it seems like it's easy to just tell the parent, go out, buy the clear backpack. If we're not going to get the metal detectors and we continue with the backpack search, a clear backpack makes it easy on our staff that's trying to get students into the building so that they don't miss their first period class. So my thought was if we provided them one, we alleviate all excuses. If we expect the parent to purchase the book bag, of course we're saying, oh, they can bring a black book bag, put it in their locker all day, but the hassle I know the hassle. I've been at the door searching backpack after backpack, 2 or 3 backpacks with all of the equipment looking for items in the backpack. Unless you're here standing here, it seems like, oh, okay, just an assembly line, the kids are in the building, everything's fine. That's not the way it plays out. With a clear backpack, we can look, visibly see, get the kids in, get them moving.
And I don't think we're saying we're not, want to move
I
that
got
forward.
it.
It's just the cost and who's going to pay for it.
No,
I think
and
that's the issue here, I guess.
And I got it, but at the end of the day, my biggest fear, someone comes in here and we make the news with a kid getting shot.
Right.
I would hate for us to go back
absolutely, on something
saying,
like that.
okay, we should have, could have, would have seized an opportunity to get a $16 or $18 backpack for a kid.
And I look at it like, I mean, I get the whole metal detector thing, but the money, we're looking at money versus lives.
Right.
This isn't every year. Well, I mean, I guess it would be. It would be every year, yes. But if it's going to make the school safer, because the same people that are complaining about spending the $70,000 are going to complain about the fact that what did the school do to save somebody's life when they get shot? Well, how did they let this happen? Why didn't they? I mean, you are going to have to spend, this is $18.45. Now, maybe some people think we shouldn't be handing out things to the students. I don't know. And that's to each his own. They have their own feelings about that. But I look at this as it's like the first step. And even if we get metal detectors, this will even help that process go faster. But I think that this is just a small...
Yeah, I think it needs to be verbalized. Instead of just saying we are going to pay the $18 for each, this is a mandatory. We buy Chromebooks, we buy this and this and that for students, for the learning. That's part of our cost of doing business as a district. So it should not even be $18. To me, it should not even been mentioned about that. This is a required item that is required for each student to have as far as their learning is concerned. And we just count the cost like that.
And where's it coming from? That's the question.
Well, just like with anything, just like with we get a lot of money from ESSA funds and things like that. So we just pay for this and pay for that. Why couldn't it not been verbalized like that? The way it's verbalized right now, it's like, you know what, the district is paying for a backpack where somebody that has millions of dollars of income coming in and we are absorbing a cost. Why should we do that? That's how, we should not be paying for something that someone could afford easily. But if it's part of a package for learning, that's different.
And I agree with you all. And I think Ken, that's why I asked the question, was it title funds?
Yeah, he did.
But I thought he
mentioned
something about how it's going to be
mention
paid
it.
for. That's why.
ESSER funds.
So.
Right,
Yeah,
he said
exactly.
ESSER funds last time.
Okay,
I
so,
thought he said something about it.
so currently the motion is to table. We can vote that up or down,
Can I take that off?
or you can
Help me here.
you can
You've
remove
got a motion on the floor
You can
now,
remove your
and it's been moved.
Rescind the motion.
Can I rescind my
You can
motion
ask the
then?
chair to rescind your motion.
I'd like to rescind my motion to table number 8A10.
Okay, and that just requires the chair to acknowledge.
Yes, you're acknowledging the rescission of the motion.
I acknowledge the rescission of the motion. So now, and do we want to put the not to qualify or the not to exceed?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
We're not going to need to spend all that, by the way.
So I will read the motion. I will request a motion for an approval. I'm going to change the language just slightly on the amount because we think we can get maybe something less.
We'll have less.
And so I'm going to use the term not to exceed. So can I have a motion to approve the purchase of 2,600 medium clear backpacks at $16.45 each and 1,500 large clear backpacks at $18.45 each for distribution to students in grades 2 through 12 in the Crete Monee School District in an amount not to exceed $70,445.
Move.
Second.
How come you can reverse that? That's why I wouldn't have to change things now.
Okay, roll call. Do we need any other further discussion, or do we?
No, I do just want to say, I'm going to vote for it. But I do think I understand what you're saying, but we can't pay for everything that we ever require always. I mean, there's calculators, you know what I'm saying? So I'll vote for this because I am concerned about safety, and I know it'll make it easier. But we have to be careful because it's not just our families of kids in the school district, people that are saying things, and I think somewhat rightly so, are taxpayers, and they're looking at all this and they're saying, where is the personal responsibility?
Exactly.
I agree.
And that's, I just wanted to put that out there. I'm going to vote for it, but I'm just saying, at some point, we can't just pay for, we can't waive everything, we can't pay for everything. We can't
Right.
sustain that.
Right. But if it, my opinion, been verbalized right, it would not have been an issue and a topic of discussion about who pays for this and who pays for that.
Right.
Because we're not talking about, again, who can afford a Chromebook, who can afford this. So, but I agree, if you have the money and you have the responsibility, you can pay for it, pay for it.
So, Dr. Carroll, I'm just curious, though, just to finish this off. I did ask the question, and they said it was going to be one per student. And I asked what happens if it's lost, whatever, they forget it, whatever. So at that, I mean, I think that has to be also clear when we put this information out, or if we're doing policy, procedure, whatever it is, that needs to be spelled out how we're going to handle it if they show up at school and they don't have the clear one, they have a different one, or they tore it, they lost it, whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of situations that they don't have it. How are we handling that? Are we enforcing it that day? Are we giving them a loaner? Because then you create nothing but everybody forgetting their backpack.
Right. Just like the ID, right? I mean, there was an uproar at the end of the
Right.
school year because they're charging $5
Which
because
really
you lost your
wasn't
ID.
true. It wasn't
Now,
true.
right.
Right. So what I'm saying is I think in the handbook somewhere, this needs to
that's
be
where it's
really,
going.
really clear. And then if you're putting it in the community newsletter, can you just repeat it in the community
Yeah,
newsletter?
as well as our building principals welcome back
Right, you know,
letter.
this whole
So,
follow-through
3
thing
times.
that we've been talking about, that it's everywhere, so that if I don't go on the website, I still have access, that information is being fed to me.
So are we clear to that the district provides one, if they lose it, they have to purchase them? Forget it, it's. Okay.
I'm writing it down.
So, Mr. Brown, we have a motion on the table. Who moved?
Who moved?
We have a motion. Who moved and who seconded?
Yeah, we had Dr. Hall move and Mrs. Galbert second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Brown is an aye. Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. Galbert,
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish,
Aye.
Vice President Root,
Aye.
President Albert.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next up is personnel report. Can I get a motion to approve the personnel report, including approval of certified staff leave of absence, return from leave of absence, reassignment, resignation, and educational support staff employment and resignation?
Moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Sawalish,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. Galbert,
Aye.
Brown is an aye. Vice President Root,
Aye.
President Albert.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, does anybody have any old business?
The only question I have for old business is, in our May meeting, we had all our teachers here in the auditorium. Have you or your team put a plan together to address that when they come back? Because unfortunately, 10 days, 14 days later, we all left for summer break. Is there going to be a plan in place to to listen to what they're asking for, kind of what they were voicing their opinion. I guess I don't want to let it go and wait till August, wait till September. At least have a plan. Are people going to be able to, are they going to come in and go into the classrooms, see what they're seeing? I mean, discipline, are we going to address any of that?
So I think there was a couple things that were coming out of that meeting. I think one of it was the safety plan that's what we've been talking about for the three sessions here, to talk about the safety of staff. So that's one area that was going to be addressed. And again, at each of the buildings, as we move forward with doing our drills and so forth, we are going to enact our safety committees at each of our buildings. Well, after each drill, they're going to reflect on what went well, what questions they have. Did they hear the intercom? Did they have blinds in their building? Those are the things that are going to come through those meetings, and eventually we'll go to like a little more of a district oversight committee. So that will get filtered through that way. As far as some of the concerns that they have with discipline, again, the building principals did address some of that earlier last week to talk about doing a book study, talking about interventions and things like that. So they are addressing that within their school setting in that way. So, they have sort of addressed that to some degree.
Okay, because I don't want a month or two in school and, they're going to come back. I mean, I would. When you have someone that's retiring, Mr. Nissen's been here a long time, and he's concerned about the safety of, him and the staff and everything here, that's a concern.
Right. And remember, we're putting in the national security. So we have put these plans in. That's what we talked about last week. Those things that will help address all of those pieces.
Right. And as long as we just, like I said, if occasionally your team can meet with somebody in the building and walk around, see what they're seeing, just see what they're seeing, what they go through on a daily basis, I guess is my point. Just make sure we follow up with that. I don't want to get into the school year and then everybody having a hard time, and kids are going to come back from summer break and they might be all wound up. We just got to make sure that and I'm sure Mr. Hollyfield will have he's going to have a grip on a plan. So,
and again, we're looking at putting in more systems, and I think that's what you're talking about, systems and structures. And I know Mr. Hollyfield specifically is going to be putting together an advisory committee of students to talk about safety and getting some ideas of what they see. He's going to be putting together an advisory council with families.
And that carries down to the middle school too. Mm-hmm. So we got to make sure that Ms. Crisos
they are working as a team.
Is doing. Okay.
They are working as a team now.
Because it seems like the kids are getting younger and the issues
Yes,
are traveling down through as they get younger.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Thanks, Bill. Good follow-up. Any other old business? Any new business?
I have one piece for Dr. Kara. I think it was the end of last week that I sent on something to you that a community member had sent me that they had seen on Facebook regarding a curriculum. And I didn't see anything in the FYI, and I know that you were going to speak with John Tell, I believe, about it. I don't know if I should say it out loud or how far we should go with this. I mean, can I say what it was?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, there was a post on Facebook about organizing groups to come after specific schools, and I believe there were 10 or 12 listed, and we were one of them that we had adopted NSES curriculum. And they're all up in arms about it, and I looked it up because I sent it to Dr. Kara. I didn't know what it was. And it's, help me out here, John, tell if I got it right. It's like National Sex Education something. And Dr. Kara was going to get a hold of John Tell to find out, because they're stating that we're practicing curriculum that starts at kindergarten with sex education.
So, and actually, we meet with the middle school tomorrow. I think that there was something that came out, I want to say maybe in January, that asked boards, would they be adopting a strictly NSES curriculum? And our answer to that question was no, that we do look at those standards as well as our state standards, and those are teacher-created curriculum that those standards start at the middle school level.
Okay, I believe we adopted something through Press Plus in February that they're stating.
That it
and
aligns to.
That Dr. Kira and I talked about that that's not curriculum, but we voted on something in February, and I haven't had a chance to look back, that stated something about that, and we voted yes to it. So I haven't been able to get to it, so I don't really know what we voted on, but I've spent many hours explaining that Press Plus is not curriculum.
Correct. We do
The public
not,
doesn't
we
understand that.
We have not published an NSES curriculum. We do have, I believe, some of those standards as well as those Illinois standards that align with that. But I would have to pull that from the middle school, but it does not start at the elementary level.
Okay, so my understanding is that it begins at 6th grade with teaching of know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
then at 7th grade, there's some further information. This group is stating that, anybody who does NSES starts in kindergarten. So is there a way for us, how do we answer that when people bring it to us? Like, I'm a board member, somebody says, you have this curriculum, what are you going to do about it? How do I answer?
No.
No, we do not have that curriculum
No,
then?
yes, we do not. We do not. We do not have a NSES curriculum for our K-5 students. We do take the Illinois standards based on health. And so a second grade level developmentally appropriate curriculum would be no appropriate touch and body, and we do participate in mandatory training as Aaron's Law to make sure that, students aren't abused and all of those things, so.
So if somebody, just out of left field here, if somebody in the community says, I want to see what your curriculum is there a place they can go to that they can see that?
Yes, so on the website, it should be under Teaching and Learning, but it's under Atlas, ATLAS. It describes all of our standards that our curriculum uses.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, because that would be helpful if I could direct them that way, you
Yes.
know. It's
They won't
always good.
see, they'll see the unit titles of what is taught and how that aligns to our state standards.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other new business? Okay, as I mentioned before, crossed out item 12, action. We'll address that in, first up, closed business. Closed session. It's late. Can I get a motion to go into closed session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Brown is an aye. Mrs. Galbraith.
Aye.
Dr. Hall.
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish.
Aye.
Vice President Root.
Aye.
President Albert.
Aye. Okay, we are in closed session at 9:14. I think we'll probably be about 45 minutes. And the only thing we'll have when we come out of closed session is adjournment, so, okay? Restroom real quick. Yes.
Will you pull mine out too while you're there? Just grab and put it up on the table. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Me and Todd moved it together, we did full credit.
So, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Come on, Todd, let's get full credit.